Now, you know what I really like? I like Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection. I think that is a damn good game. And it doesn't matter if you are a competitive player, you're a casual player, you're just like someone who enjoys solo content in fighting games. Whatever you like in a fighting game, there is something for you in Tekken Dark Resurrection. It's a great game. They went from Tekken 5 Vanilla in the PS2, which was already a great game on its own, and when they did the transition to PSP, they added so much solo content. Wow, impressive. They brought back Tekken Ball, they added a couple of extra mini-games, they added the dojo mode, which is fairly substantial if you actually decided to play it through the end with a single character. Lots of stuff. I kinda missed the Devil Within. There was a lot that could have been improved in that mode. If they, I don't know, maybe modified the controls a bit, added a few cutscenes and stuff like that. Not much. It was definitely a good foundation. It just needed a couple more tweaks that never happened, and that's a shame. But overall, Dark Resurrection is like a great package for someone who both enjoys the casual side of fighting games and also if you're more competitive. It's just a good game, that's it. And I really don't like seeing the more competitively inclined minds nowadays dismiss the presence of single player stuff, because it's not something that back in the day, like Soul Calibur 2 I'm talking Mortal Kombat Deception, which I know it's a very divisive game when it comes to the gameplay, but in terms of like content and stuff to do, like there was a ton of stuff. Back in the day, players didn't have to choose between a solid multiplayer experience and a solid single player experience, because fighting games used to have both. And I think when the developers of Tekken 8 were creating the arcade quest mode, they wanted to recreate this feeling of getting lost in this big world that was completely separated from anything else that you would do, like on ranked and stuff. And I can see that there was a good intention there. But this mode is simply dog shit, okay? And I'm going to spend this video explaining why I think it's dog shit, because there is a lot to say. I know this is a hot take, not everyone agrees with this, but I am one of those who thinks that actually having new editions sold separately for each fighting game instead of just having the seasonal system that everyone has to deal with nowadays, I think that's better. I actually do. And the big reason for that is that from one game to the other, you would actually get more single player content, not just balance patches and a couple new characters. And you don't really get this kind of thing anymore. Now, yes, Tekken 8 did get the Forgotten Echoes story mode, but it was like 1 hour of content and the story was kinda shit. And I say this as someone who really liked the Dark Awakens story mode in like vanilla Tekken 8. But yeah, I would like something more substantial, and I would be willing to pay for it. I waited 2 years to play Tekken 8. If there was a Tekken 8 Dark Resurrection that was treated by the developers with the same care that Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection got back in the day, I would have happily bought it with all the new content that you would expect from something like that. Instead, I'm just stuck with a slightly better version of vanilla that does very little to actually improve on what could have been improved in Arcade Quest. I'm talking having the NPCs actually use characters that have been introduced with the DLCs and Season 2 and 3. That's what I mean. Just an updated version of this mode with nothing else. That would already be so much. But because single player content isn't as valued as it used to be, I guess this mode is just destined to never improve and reach its full potential. And it wouldn't even take long, just updating some of the NPCs. I'm talking something that you could do in an afternoon. It's very frustrating. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, I suppose. That's a Tekken meme, in case you didn't know. I'm a Tekken expert. I'm not saying that there wasn't a lot of effort put into this mode, because there absolutely was. It's undeniable that just creating all of these avatars took a lot of time and effort, just like, you know, creating the arcades and writing the story and everything that is required to make something like this work on a technical level. I get it, lot of effort, I can recognize that. I'm a game developer. I'm not saying that this was just something they put together in a weekend. Absolutely not. What I'm saying is everything about what I just described is incredibly lame and incredibly unappealing. If you look at the Steam achievements, the percentage of people who actually like went through the entire thing, it's less than 20%. And how could it not be? Like, you can finish this in like 20 minutes if you skip all of the secondary stuff, if you just mesh through the dialogues. And even so few people have actually played it till the end. Because it's really bad. Because it's so ugly that you don't even want to start playing it after seeing what everything looks like. The dialogues are just, they're Pokemon dialogues. Okay, and I like Pokemon when it's good, like Emerald, you know, Platinum back in the day. But Pokemon is like that because it's catering to an audience of children. Tekken is aiming for an audience that usually skews towards teenagers, young adults. And if you present your tutorial mode like that, no one is going to like it, especially because the avatars are so ugly. The editor for the avatars that you can maneuver around the arcades, it's fairly advanced for something so minimal. But I want to play as Paul, I don't know, as Kazuya. I want to feel like I am the character that I'm playing. I don't want to feel like some dork that is playing at the arcades. Because I already am a dork that used to play at the arcades when those were still a thing, okay? That's not something that I want. Completely misfire with the presentation in general. And that is just the beginning of the issues I have. And I will have to give this mode some praise at least for actually having CPUs in the arcades that do have different patterns and ways of movement that actually would invite different styles of play, or just, you know, adapting to what you're seeing on screen instead of just meshing. At least in theory. One thing that I struggle to understand, and it's not just related to the arcade quest, but the entire single player content of the game, is why did they choose intentionally to limit the difficulty of the CPU as much as they did? Not only the fact that you cannot select very hard and ultra hard like you used to be able to, but also the fact that you cannot do it like on the fly. You know, you pause the game and you can change it whatever you want. I think you could do it as far back as Tekken 7, so I'm really confused by this decision. Even more so because if you go back and play any of the older games, the ones on PS2 and PS3, regular hard mode is infinitely harder than what you see in Tekken 8. I understand that the game is trying to cater to casuals. That's fine, I don't have a problem with that. But how does this exactly help if someone wants the game to be a bit more difficult? If someone maybe is a bit more familiar with the game's mechanics and wants to challenge himself? Why can't I do the character episodes on ultra hard mode? It's not like the whatever fight money you are rewarded is influenced by your difficulty settings. So why is this a thing? I don't understand. That would be very easy to implement if someone just understood that making Arcade Quest as easy and as boring as it is isn't helping anyone. It's not something that is fun to play, it's not something that is useful, but it could have been if during whatever creative process they were going through before doing the coding and that stuff, if they just sat back and realized people back in the day, in the PS2 days, when the CPU was a lot more difficult, they were still playing, they were still having fun. We don't have to dumb things down as we are doing. there is no point to it. It's only making things worse. Again, I cannot speak when it comes to the competitive stuff, but I've heard a lot of people complain that, the hit system and the rage arts all being included are just doing a lot to dump the game down online. And the same thing is happening on the single player mode. Problem is, no one cares about the single player mode because it's so bad that why bother? Why spend the hours going through the arcade quest when you can just go on ranked and get the same experience but better? Because at the end of the day, you're not getting anything out of this mode that isn't already available online. Give me something different. Give me Treasure Battle from Tekken 7. Okay, that game had no single player whatsoever. I took big issue with that when I played the game. But Treasure Battle had a lot of cool things going on. I liked that sometimes you would fight, for example, at double the speed, or maybe you get double damage and you can fight against unplayable bosses from the story mode. Shit like that. It's fun. Give me something like that. If you're not good at teaching me the game, give me something that I cannot get just by going to ranked. That's what good single player should be. And Arcade Quest is nothing like that. And since I am bringing up a Treasure Battle, might as well talk about the Super Ghost Battles. They are essentially what used to be, in Tekken 7, Tekken 6, and as far back as I suppose Tekken 4 maybe had it, I don't remember. But this mode where you can play CPUs with special costumes and patterns and stuff. And it's a really neat diversion. I liked it in the previous games. Here they just stripped away anything that made it cool. All of the innovations that Treasure Battle brought, they're gone. You cannot start at if you're a very new player. Okay, it's not a problem for me personally because I've played a lot of Tekkens and it's fine if the game starts you off against CPUs with higher ranks. But if you're new to the game and you just want to start a new character for your single player fun and you can't because the Super Ghost Battles are way more difficult than you can initially handle, and eventually maybe you can I suppose overcome this difficulty curve. But that's not where the difficulty curve should be. The difficulty curve should be when you're playing the arcade quest. That mode should be more difficult, and the Super Ghost Battles should be not only easier, but also they should have more content. There is so much that you could have done to improve this mode from Treasure Battles, and nothing was done. Fine, whatever, I get that this was the intended direction, and I don't agree with it. But as a tool to get new players to learn the mechanics and to adapt to the online environment, this is simply not acceptable. I don't understand how they went through all the effort to create this massive infrastructure of arcades and the character editor and the story and all of that. And not once did they think that the tutorial part of the game was so incredibly lacking. By all means, yes, you do understand stuff like the launchers, using rage arts, the hit system. That stuff is explained, but I'm talking about putting everything into practice in a way that you can understand without making an ass of yourself when playing ranked. There is these secondary objectives that would greatly help actually in case someone wanted to learn the ropes. Even if the CPU is easy, just being able to do something on a consistent basis, that would be something valuable. That would be something that would make this mode worthy of being played as a learning tool. In case maybe someone is a bit intimidated or confused or just doesn't see much entertainment value in just going to practice mode and labbing. Problem is, these objectives are unsubstantial. Do hit smash 3 times with no context whatsoever of when you're doing it. It doesn't matter if it's between 10 different fights, you can do it, and the game considers you a hit smash master. And I'm not a fan of that, especially for the more complex actions that the game is asking from you as a secondary objective. I think it would be a lot better if these objectives rewarded consistency in some kind. For example, I don't know, do this kind of combo and then chain it into this other thing and then win the round or win the set or whatever. Something that would prove that you can use this stuff in a real competitive setting. Just adding the fact that you have to win a round or a set to achieve this secondary objective. And it's not like Tekken as a series is new to the concept of creating a good tutorial. As a matter of fact, if you go back to Tekken Tag 2, that one had such a good tutorial. You had funny dialogue with Violet and his secretary, boss battles, much more precise and concise requirements. It was a lot less bloated, it was just better. So, like, they already had the template to create a good, proper tutorial. They just somehow didn't want to use it.